Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here once again. I'm back so soon because I'm believing that perhaps I've tapped into something. When I start talking about the economy, when I start talking about capitalism, you know, most people in America, especially those who haven't had proper education, are in the mindset that our system of government, as far as the economy is concerned and our capitalism is concerned, that it came from heaven. They don't understand that in biblical days, capitalism did not exist. They don't understand that a guy named David Hume and Adam Smith had something to do with the fostering of capitalism within the United States. They talk about how it promoted progress, especially when you refer to the free market systems. They talk about capitalism as one that is a proponent of private property. Private property. And when they talk about private property, for the main thing, they're talking about land. That's the main thing, land. Private property, ownership of land. And anybody knows that no human being had anything to do with making a land. And to walking on it and claiming it as yours is just absolutely pathetic. It had been said that capitalism had an expression that the fortunate must be restrained by the exercise of tyranny over the unfortunate. The unfortunate would be you and I, people who don't have anything, people who are poor, and that they usually are that way because of the exercise of tyranny. But this tyranny must not exist over those who consider themselves fortunate. And who are those that are fortunate? Those are the ones who own everything. And how do they own it? They come up with a scheme, a Ponzi scheme to take it. Talk about capitalism as having its negatives as well. And they talk about it having to do with pollution, having to do with a diminishing of non-renewable resources. They talk about it as being proportionally, should I say disproportionately, exercised when we're talking about the redistribution of wealth. And these are negatives, but these are all negatives that make capitalism what it is. And these are all founded on this fact that there are people who are willing to do anything to get what they want. And I say anything. That means making people slaves. That means taking people's land. That means killing people, doing anything to say it's mine. And after having done that, you create laws and things that protects it. And so those who were left out in the beginning are usually left out in the end. This is why I find myself coming to you, ladies and gentlemen, speaking to you about a system that we have never heard about. And if it was heard about in the book of Acts, excuse me, when they talked about everybody taking what they own and putting it in the pile, and everybody used it. But they found problems there because there were people before that time who had their own stuff. This is mine, they were saying. And now that you got to all put it into a basket and say it belongs to all of us, then there were going to be people who were going to say, well, I'm going to keep some on the side. And so that system seemed to have failed. But in reality, the only system that will work for everybody, the only system that should work for everybody, is a system that was designed by the Creator. And that Creator didn't have capitalism on his mind, didn't have socialism or communism on his mind. It just had heaven on his mind. And that's why everything, all the resources were given, all the talents and skills were given, and the information of how to do it was given. And the people with the ability to do it are doing it and have always been doing it. And they continue to do it, and it is done for the purpose of the human race, not for the purpose of using it so some people can be more important by their own standards than others. This is why I say to you, those of you who are suffering, that you've been had, you've been bamboozled, you've been scammed. You have these systems, and for Americans, it's the capitalist system that has robbed you. You talk about Enron robbing people. You're talking about Wall Street robbing people. You're talking about the big banks robbing people. this system of government has robbed you and continuously robbed you every day. And sometimes you say, well, the rich have to pay their share. Well, ask Donald Trump. He doesn't pay taxes. Well, many of them do, but sometimes they get away from paying those taxes. And I can understand why they might try. It is an unfair system. And for the people who hurt the most, like you and I, we got to do something about it. We got to do something about it on a moral ground. We're not talking about the Constitution now. We're not talking about who's this and who's that. We're talking about what's right and what's wrong according to the founding processes of creation. And that was designed that nobody should be without stuff. I went to Best Buy today, and I'm looking at these washing machines. You know how many of you got washing machines that are falling apart, dryers falling apart. You don't want it, but you can't really afford nothing new. Your stuff has got to last 8 to 10 years for you. You can't be making those turnovers faster than that. And they got all this wonderful stuff there, washers and dryers. They got these refrigerators that can, ooh, they look so beautiful and look so good. They would look fine in your homes, but you can't afford them. They're for people who got money. They're for what we call the elite. And yet you need it most than anybody, but you can't get it. You pass by these car lots. The car lots are just filled with the new model cars and cars that were there last year, the cars that's coming in. Sitting right there on the car lot, waiting for somebody to go in the debt to get some money to come and get them. And you out there with a raggedy trap, driving by, looking at them, wondering why you can't get them. You can't get them because you got a system designed to prevent you from getting them. It's not God. It's a system that's designed that you support by going along with the system, listening to liars who say they're going to do something about it and don't. You go by and you see all kinds of things in stores like dishes and pots and pans and couches and chandeliers and porches and decks and barbecue grills, all these things that you wish you had, but you don't have any of it, don't have access to it, because you've been, what, marginalized out. Why? Because you don't have the capital. And if you get it, you got to go into debt. You got to get credit. You got to pay taxes. You got to pay all kind of fees. You got to work your butt off to try to pay for this stuff. When you all have to do is put your faith in God. I'm trying to tell you one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Put your faith in God. And I'm not talking about giving tithes and offerings to preachers. I'm talking about giving your tithes and offerings to God. And what are your tithes and offerings to God? The realization that God is the authority. The understanding that your duty is to respond according to moral principles of life. That's your tithes and offerings to God. And they are felt and rewarded to all people by all people. And this is key to getting rid of this system of government, the system of economics that's robbing you every day. And I'm speaking to you about it because I want it to end. I want it to end because it's morally wrong. It's morally misfit to see Trump walking before the people talking about how wealthy he is. Got his big plane and we down here with small minds and sick heads buying into it as if he is some authority that's going to look after us. There's no one going to look after you, ladies and gentlemen, but God. You better put your faith in God. And putting your faith in God meaning expecting people to be responsive to your needs as you are responsive to their needs. Now, I'm trying to tell you how to break this old stupidity that we've been trained to accept. I'm trying to break the stupidity that we've been trained to accept. When all things belong to God. When you look back at it, all things, whether you're talking about the resources, whether you're talking about the human beings, whether you're talking about the ability to extract, whether you're talking about the ability to create and do, it all belongs right back to God. Not to anyone else but God. But that God has set up a system whereby we can benefit from it all easily, lightly, without sweat. But we reject that because we've been brainwashed to think otherwise. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. God is speaking to you right now. You better wake up and let us change the society before you get too old to do anything about it. You know the young people are not if you don't start it. So don't go to your grave not prepared. You better wake up and let's do something. You see this gray hair on my head? It's white. It's telling you that I know something. You better listen to me. Most people got what you call salt and pepper hair. I got gray hair or white hair, like the wool of sheep. You better listen. You might learn something. All right. Bye-bye.